Samer Abudaqa was the 13th Al Jazeera journalist killed since the network launched in 1996. A statement released by Al Jazeera condemns in the strongest terms the Israeli drone attack on a Gaza school that resulted in the killing of cameraman Samer Abudaqa. It adds the network holds Israel accountable for systematically targeting and killing Al Jazeera journalists and their families, and extends its sincere condolences to the family in Gaza and in Belgium of the late colleague Samer Abudaqa. With the killing of Samer Abudaqa, the number of journalists and media workers killed in Gaza reached over 90. Al Jazeera urges the international community and the International Criminal Court to take immediate action to hold the Israeli government and military accountable. Well, Hani Mahmoud is live for us in Rafah in southern Gaza. And Hani, in light of the killing of Samer, can you just give us an idea of the risks you and other journalists there are facing?
Yes, good morning, Tom. Just devastating news that we received at about midnight, and it was a little late for us to receive it due to disabled communications as we were trying to get updated on what happened to our colleague and a friend Samer as early as we could, but disabled communication made it just difficult to learn more about his health status. Eventually, we received the devastating news of his death as he succumbed to his wounds that he sustained. And with this happening, we look at a pattern since the beginning of the war. There's nothing that protects journalists across the Gaza Strip, and we see more evidence of this happening. That almost on a weekly basis, more journalists and more reporters and more people working and documenting the atrocities of the Israeli crimes and this genocidal war across the Gaza Strip, being targeted, either directly being killed, or their families are being targeted just to inflict so much pain on them and their work, and to prevent them from continuing work. There is no way around bullets, and there's no way around bombs. They always win against the flesh, and this is the ugly truth of what's happening. To the point, you're pushed to feel that all what is done is pointless, but then you look that there are things that needed to be documented. The story of Gaza, the story of Gazans need to be told to the world, and that's probably the most driving motivation for the journalist community across the Gaza Strip to keep working despite the dangers, despite the risk, the imminent threat of their lives and of not only them but also their family members. So far, Al Jazeera journalists in Gaza have lost family members, and now themselves are being targeted, starting with Wael, and then we have a broadcaster, and then a journalist who lost his family members, and now Samer himself being the target of the Israeli attacks in Khan Younis, as they were doing their job professionally and just stating things as they happen, without any addition, any editing, anything to sound other than the truth. But despite that, and committing to the professional level of their job, they were targeted and killed. And let's not forget that there are also 3 civil defense crew members were also at the site when the attacks happened. They were also killed, and that's the pattern we've been seeing since the beginning of the war. The educated, the elite class of educated members of our community are being targeted: doctors, engineers, journalists, and those who work in healthcare, those who work in education are the targets, and seems to be like it's done on purpose just to cripple the society for years to come.
Okay, thanks so much, Hani. Just know that your work is more vital than ever. Thanks so much, Hani Mahmoud, for us in Rafah. Well, Palestinian journalists in Gaza are not just covering the war, they are part of a civilian population living under near constant Israeli bombardment, as Hani was talking about there. At least 90 Palestinian journalists have now been killed in the conflict. More than 50 media premises or offices have been completely or partially destroyed by Israeli strikes. That includes the office of the AFP news agency in Gaza. Hundreds of Palestinian journalists and their families, including those from Al Jazeera, have been forcibly displaced. Journalists working in areas of armed conflict are protected under international humanitarian law, as are civilians under the Geneva Convention. But Israel is accused of repeatedly violating those rules.